Brian Wood, Frontline Aerospace CEO, and I wanted to talk to you about disrupting the business jet. So how? That's the big trick, is how do we go about disrupting it? So the first half of the presentation is going to focus on some ideas about how you disrupt the business jet. And then I'll give you an example of how I propose to implement that. So the first element is to try to keep it simple.
Just to keep it simple. Thrust, lift, drag, and weight. Thrust, lift, drag, weight.
So I'm going to add landing zone flexibility or balanced field length, and I'm going to subtract lift. But I'm going to start with thrust, because that's the most important thing. And the overall aircraft efficiency is a function of the thermal efficiency of how well you convert hydrocarbons to work, and the propulsive efficiency of how well you move the air. And for those that saw the Rolls-Royce UltraFan presentation yesterday, that's an example of somebody working hard on the propulsive efficiency side of it. And I'm going to talk about both of them. First one I'm going to talk about is the engine itself. So here you see the history of gas turbines. And they start off with a low turbine inlet temperature, and they go higher and higher. And we're only about halfway done. I wouldn't count gas turbines out. I mean, eVTOL is great, but we're only halfway done in improving the thermal efficiency of converting hydrocarbons to work. So one of the ways that we did a small 500 horsepower design, and we used full flow cooling. So this allowed you to up the turbine inlet temperature way up to 3,200, 3,300 degrees Fahrenheit, 2,000 plus Kelvin. So that's one way to disrupt it. Big OEMs could disrupt it if they chose to go down this path and I think some of them are working on it. The other way is to work on propulsive efficiency. What you see in the upper left is business jets, 5-to-1 bypass ratio, 60 to 70% propulsive efficiency. And what you see further down in the gray zone is a ducted fan, or what I'll describe later as SkyFan. And this is a big way to improve the efficiency. It's a 50-to-1 bypass ratio turbine, a way to move the air back and forth. The other thing you get by putting a big turbine on the back of a jet is you get boundary layer ingestion. You can suck off the drag. And so that immediately buys you 10% less drag. And that's a big advantage in your configuration of your aircraft. This is SkyFan. I can talk to you more about it offline, but what it is a giant high efficiency ducted fan, counter-rotating on the rear, and double the range of business jets, turboprop efficiency, diamond box wing. So this is the implementation that I chose to highlight some of these disruptions. We used a joined wing, which is the name for it in the literature, or a diamond box wing. It's lower weight, it's got less drag. Some of the advanced configurations that Lockheed has done use this sort of design instead of traditional wings, which are heavier and more drag resistance. The other big benefit is that you've got to change the landing zones. You got to increase. Everybody's talked about using all these regional airports. Well, now we can get down to 2,100 feet balanced field length and use all the other airports that are around the world. And so that's a big advantage in the marketplace for a business jet like this. The other thing is fuel cost. So at the very top, it's hard to read, is the Gulfstream 280, and it's like 62 cents per seat mile for fuel cost. Now, when you implement a big ducted fan with mature gas turbines on the back, you can get down to a Boeing 737 MAX on a seat mile basis. So that's on fuel, just fuel. I mean, you still have pilots and other costs, but we can disrupt the fuel expense. And what this means is that you can travel a long way. This design is for 5,200 nautical miles for 4-passenger, 4,100 for 8. My design goals, I live in Denver, Colorado, and I wanted to go from Denver to London nonstop on my own jet. I may never get there, but that's my goal, was the design. The other thing is noise. I mean, you have noise associated with approach and takeoff. And with a big ducted fan, and you can bury the engines inside the fuselage, you can capture the noise and not have it be a big impact on a local small airport where people like in Atherton complain. The other thing we added was a panoramic window inside the fuselage. No traditional windows. We wanted to make it lighter. So windows cost weight. So we put basically 20 feet of cell phone or 8K monitors on the inside so you can see out and see out well. And that technology keeps improving continually. It's powered by mature off-the-shelf GE CT7 engines. There's 22,000 built, there's MROs, there's support. There's no risk in the engine propulsion. I'm not locked into GE, there's other options too, but it's a very mature approach. All the design risk is really in the ducted fan. That's the sort of trick element. We have some intellectual property associated with this, not only the design, but in the ducted fan and in some of our isothermal compression technology, which is where our company sort of specializes in engine technology. In the end, you got to figure out how do you compare everybody to each other, all these competition metrics. And so on each of the vertices around this 5-point diagram, there's a different metric. One might be a thrill index, thrust to weight. One might be more complicated, where you have aircraft total value, where you do speed, range, payload, number of airports divided by the direct operating cost, divided by the takeoff gross weight, divided by the purchase price, or any other metric you want to create. And they roughly all show that we have a big advantage. And what you have to do next is sort of say, well, do I really believe this? And so one of the things that I did was hire a company called Me Evaluators to go look at pricing and volume and capability. So I had Me do this, and we outputted what's the value of SkyFan. So if you take the high and the low, throw them out and average the rest, it says $24 million. But if you really want to disrupt the marketplace, you probably need to go to $20 million or 19. Then the question is, what's the demand for this? And this is a complicated chart, but what you're seeing is the history of all business jets production volume for the past decade. And so what you can look at is where SkyFan is positioned in the middle, sort of a 10-year demand of 200 to 300 aircraft or $4 to $6 billion in revenue. So that's the potential environment. I'm not alone in this endeavor. I have partners with NASA and GE and Avid. Aerospace focuses on ducted fan designs. So it's a team effort to get into this process. And our goal here is to really build one demonstrator to show off the technology. We're looking for $21 million to take about 30 months. It'll be a phased approach with milestones and so forth. We got some IP, and even if it's a giant fiasco at the end, at least we'll walk away with a functional experimental business jet that could actually earn money and probably get financed or reduce the risk. Thank you.